Hello, everyone. I'm your host, David Haas, and I have a very special guest here today with me. It's my good friend, longtime business partner, and I also who I consider my mentor. Andrew Facca is here with me today. And I think the reason I want to bring Andrew on is because when we were in business together, he was able to see that I was kind of struggling with regards to my health and my levels of stress and anxiety and success and all of it. He could see it all. And we started with food. And just by offering me a few, I think, critical suggestions and kind of showing me the light, he was able to make profound change in my life. And just to give you a quick little recap, he created this movie called Voyage to Betterment, where I was kind of the original guinea pig of Voyage to Betterment. And in a very short window of time, I went from being this meat-eating carnivore who had zero clue about what was actually healthy. This is actually a joke that I say a lot in my content, is that I thought like not ordering fries at McDonald's was what being healthier was. And I was really completely clueless, and I had no awareness. And what he was able to do was to give me that awareness. And when he put me on his challenge, which was a 30-day challenge, we took blood tests, and not only did my physical appearance change dramatically, I lost like 25 pounds in 30 days. I basically just melted away, and people were saying like, what are you doing? Like they just wanted to know, right? But also those blood tests revealed that my chances of heart disease, my chances of diabetes and cancer and all these have dramatically reduced by almost over 50% for every single one of those. And this was long before The Biggest Loser or anyone else was doing it. He was way ahead of his time with regards to being able to see the patterns that were forming. So I just wanted to bring you on here and do a little interview with you, because I think it's critical for people to know the truth about food and have the awareness that you were able to create for me. And I know that you even have way more knowledge than I'm still completely unaware of. So I wanted to expand my horizons. So thanks for taking the time to come on. And let's just start with like a simple question, which I know is on everybody's mind, because the diet industry is just so gigantic now. And there's Atkins and paleo and carnivore and whatever, vegan, vegetarian, and they're just lost in the sea of information. So what's the best diet?
Okay, well, thanks for having me, and that's a great question. And it's a question that's on a lot of people's minds. And what ends up happening if people start looking into nutrition and listening to what everybody's saying, and it seems to be counter, like people are arguing against each other, a lot of times people just get fed up with it all, and they're like, I don't know who to believe. This doctor says this doctor says that, right? So I look at it in a little bit of a different way. You come from the restaurant business, correct?
Yeah.
How about when you go to a restaurant? When you go to a restaurant, are you ordering different things from the menu each time? Or when you go to your favorite restaurant?
Yeah, no. I eat the same thing pretty much everywhere I go.
Yeah. So what you'll find, and marketing psychologists know this, that most people only eat 12 things over and over again. They just repeat the same. When you go to the grocery store, you go back to the exact same spot. It's like, when you take a shower, you take a shower the exact same way. When you brush your teeth the exact same way. You miss all the spots, so when we eat, it's the same kind of thing. We're kind of like programmed by this repetition, and then every once in a while we may make some changes to those 12 things. Maybe we're adventurous, maybe we have 20 different things we eat, but the reality is that there's 500,000 different edible plant and animal foods on the planet. So if you wanted to, you can combine them in different ways and create 500 trillion different diets. So you could create like your own diet, call it the fish and fruit diet. And then you could put people on like a challenge, and you can notice the benefits of it. And then you'll say, this is the Dave Haas diet. And what you'll do is you'll attract a lot of people to that can benefit from it. And there might be some short-term and there might be some long-term gains. But in general, a lot of conditions that people have, a lot of illnesses and diseases that people have, are a consequence of the food choices, the repetitious food choices made over and over again. So there's a clinic. It's actually kind of like a natural hospital in Russia and Siberia. So one of the most desolate places on earth, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're able to heal. They've done like 15,000, they've got records of like 15,000 places, okay? People go into their clinic, 3 weeks later, they're healed of 2/3 of their diseases. So you're talking about hypertension, diabetes, all sorts of heart disease issues, and it goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And they're able to stimulate stem cell reproduction. It's like, it's miraculous. People become young again in 3 weeks. And you know what they do?
No, diet, I'm guessing.
No, a water fast.
Ah, nice.
You see, so what ends up happening is, because of this repetitious cycle, things happen. And then when there's like consequences that are undesirable, we notice them. And then we might medicate for them. So we get high blood pressure, we take a pill to lower the blood pressure. Mm-hmm. Well, that doesn't resolve what the hell's going on. You're still following the repetitious program that you were doing before of eating the same old shit. Okay? So what you'll find is that all these alleged diets that are supposed to have all these huge benefits are because they're limiting the number of things that you're eating, and some of those might have some benefit. Taking them away from the diet might have some beneficial effects. And then the assumption that's made, then this is the best diet for everyone.
Right. Yeah.
So if you just go on a water fast for 3 weeks, you'll cure 2/3 of what's going on out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I actually have some experience doing some fast, and I experienced actually a really, really amazing results. I did a 10-day water fast once, and it was the mental clarity and the rehydration of the skin, and the energy levels were all through the roof. So I definitely know the benefits of the fast. So I think this is super amazing information, because we get so hooked on like, oh, I'm paleo, and we get attached. And I know for me as a vegetarian, I was insanely attached to my position as a vegetarian in the beginning. And right. One of the things I had to learn how to do was to let go of that right. attachment to that position, because I was constantly in battles with my meat-eating yes. friends, right? So this kind of segues into, I think, what you were able to reveal to me was about the fear that is created around what we're putting into our bodies, and the fear right. that's created around the food that we're putting into our bodies, which I think is probably even more detrimental to our health than right. the actual diet.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I'm saying that there's like 500,000 different. See, we're primates. This is when I give like a critical point to somebody, I just want them to keep it in mind. So foods that are beneficial for other primates are probably beneficial for us too. We're one of 180, 190 species of primates. They look pretty much similar to us. Now, people will also take that and kind of abuse it and go back to a certain point in time and say, well, let's go back 10,000 years to when we were hunter-gatherers and so on. Okay, well, let's go back a few million years, And so where do you go, right? So, but the reality is that primates are generalists. They can eat just about anything. In general, most primates eat about 95% plant foods, but they're not vegan. Some are, but most aren't. And you can get everything you need from like a million different diets. So literally you could create like a million different diets that are beneficial and will lead to robust health. So I remember early on, I learned about, this is 30 years ago, Helen and Scott Nearing. Do you remember me talking about that? So they just decided to give up modern life in New York, and they moved to Vermont, and they decided that they were just going to grow their own food and build their own house. And they wrote the book, The Good Life. And they showed how to do that. And they basically ate fresh food that they grew in a 2-month season. And then they supplemented it in the winter with like big bags of peanuts and wheat, things that people would say, no, that's bad, And what they did, Scott lived to be 100, working out in the garden, building his own home. And at age 100, he said, you know what? I'm starting to have a hard time taking care of myself right now. So he decided to fast until he died. Like it was a purposeful thing. He's like, you know what? I'm good. I led like a good life. And so he just went in bed until he passed peacefully. And then his wife, Helen, she died at age 91 or 92, something like that, in a car accident, actually. But what was really interesting about them, they never had any illness. They never needed any doctors. They never needed any kind of interventions, no medications, nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So just if I sum it up, because I want to sum it up for the people listening, is eat a wide variety of foods and eat like a primate.
Well, I mean, that's something that I would recommend.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But the thing is, there are benefits. Again, let's say that you decided to eat like an exclusively carnivorous diet, like some people are choosing to do. There could be huge benefits. Again, just remember that a lot of times the benefits come from taking things away that are repetitious. So let's say that a lot of people are following like the no lectin kind of diet. Like, I don't want to touch lectins. There's like Dr. Gundry.
What are lectins?
Lectins are just chemicals in plants.
Okay.
So it's the plant's own immune system. So what ends up happening is that plants can't run away from people. So they've evolved, or any animals that try to eat them and stuff. So you go in the desert, they all have spikes and stuff like that. But they also have like chemicals that they produce to prevent animals from destroying them completely. But we've evolved hand in hand with eating plants and animals. So these are called like lectins. There's also phytochemicals in plants. There's all these different molecules in plants. Now, these are really the plant's own immune system. Okay? And there's a lot of benefit when we actually eat the lectins and phytochemicals in plants. They can improve our immune system. So Tartary buckwheat, for example, a plant, buckwheat that grows out in the Himalayas, they've done clinical studies on them. And eating that actually boosts your own immune cell production. It actually makes your immune system young again. All right? And then there's things like anthocyanins that are found in purple fruits and vegetables. And what ends up happening is there's scientists actually did studies, I believe, in Australia, and what they showed with anthocyanins is that, so let's say a lot of people say, oh, that carb diet is bad because it leads to people being overweight. Well, when they added anthocyanin from purple fruits and vegetables to these rats that were obese, just adding the anthocyanin, which is basically just purple juice, so drink purple carrot juice, reduced all the effects of obesity and all the associated diseases with that, like hypertension, diabetes, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't want to avoid that stuff. I remember 30 years ago when I started down this path before Google, I started researching all these different things. I probably read like a couple hundred different books. And one of the things that stuck out was all of the benefits of chlorophyll that comes from green plants. And there were tons of scientific studies done, clinical studies showing the benefit of when we ingest that. It's like the chlorophyll is the blood of plants, and it mimics like the hemoglobin in our own blood. And so when we ingest that, we're getting like the oxygen, we're getting like the sun. It's like it gets transformed. That's why when you see like gorillas in the wild and stuff, they're eating mass amounts of leaves and stuff. And most primates eat leaves. And that's why a lot of people that eat salad, I remember a friend of mine that started coming in my cooking classes back 20 years ago. She was like in her early 20s or something, and she's in her early 40s. She looks exactly the same she did when she was in her 20s because she eats like 2 huge salads a day.
Right.
So, but that doesn't mean there aren't benefits. You can go, if all you started eating was chicken and you ate chicken for a year, you would probably see like a lot of health benefits because you've just removed a lot of the repetitious things. So let's say there are some potential dangers to eating lectins, and that's what somebody like Dr. Gundry's showing. Well, you've got all these lectins, let's take the lectins out. So they'll take wheat out, they'll take all grains out of the diet, and then they'll see improvements because that repetition of eating those lectins all over, maybe too much of it, might have led to gut issues. and microbiome issues. Now you remove it, the body adjusts and it gets better. So if you were to eat just meat, you might remove some of the conditions. So you always want to keep in mind the Russian fasting approach, that when you remove stuff, you remove everything.
Yeah.
You know, air, water, and sunshine is what we need. You know, we could go like 3 months without eating. Like penguins go 4 months without eating. If you got a lot of fat, there was, you know what the longest fast was for a human?
Yeah, I heard about this guy, like a year and something.
Yeah, it was over a year.
Yeah.
So because you did the water fast, you know about that, right?
Yeah.
So you always want to keep that in mind, right? So and so you know, I just want people to see like what is beneficial. So what is not beneficial is eating all the crap. Like you should just avoid fried foods completely. Packaged foods, like basically food that you can grow out of your garden is the best.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what Helen and Scott Nearing did. They were like strict vegetarians. Right. And so somebody that says, no, vegetarian eating is wrong. It's no, that's bullshit. You know, if you want to be vegetarian, go for it.
Right.
If you want to be a meat eater, go for it too. Like really, they're the Dakota Plains Indians. They were some of the longest lived people on earth. Tons of centenarians, and they ate mainly buffalo meat.
Right.
You know, but they also ate yams. And then you look at people like Walter Longo that created the longevity diet. Now that was pretty much the closest thing to what we did in Voyage to Betterment. Do you recall when you did that 30-day test? It was like, I didn't want to make it restrictive. Say, eat mainly plants, but if you want to eat fish once or twice a week, go for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty close to what Walter Longo determined is an ideal diet. And he's basing it on all his studies with centenarians and blue zones, that they eat mainly plants and some fish. So he's vegan 5 days a week, and then he eats fish on weekends, you see. Yeah. And the plants that they're eating are a lot of times tubers. Okay, so if you really go back and look at history and the evolution of primates from the time we were like going in trees to like our evolution right now, there's a certain point in time, like you want to know about food, watch a few episodes of Naked and Afraid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you'll see that if you're starving, well, you're going to eat some animals.
Yeah.
Right? Or you're going to eat some fruit, or you're going to start digging some yuccas and eating some tubers. So what you'll also see is there's a lot of competition, and the animals don't want to be killed, and they're pretty smart, and they're going to try and run away from you. So you'll see how difficult it is, right? Yeah. So what ended up happening when we evolved from like the trees, it wasn't like we just became like these hunters. It was like we had intelligence, so we knew how to take tubers and replant them and make them grow. My brother does that in the garden. You know, he plants sweet potatoes and then they grow like crazy. I just planted like a ton of potatoes, red potatoes and what have you. And those tubers is actually what most people in those long-lived countries actually eat a lot of, right? So there's pretty much no argument about amongst all the alleged health experts, whatever, everybody claiming to be like a nutritionist and what have you. It's to eat whole foods, avoid all the packaged crap.
Yes.
But when you go into most people's home, you will find it filled with packaged crap because it's easy and it's convenient, and then we tend to eat the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, like with regards to just to sum this all up, I think is this eat like a primate. Right, eat a wide variety of foods. So when you say that, because I know the questions that are going to come is like, well, if I eat like a primate, this is the number one question that's going to come. Because even and what you described from the one guy, I can't remember his name that you said it, but he ate fish 2 days a week. What was his name?
Oh, Walter Longo.
Okay. So Walter Longo ate fish. That essentially is like, you know, I remember watching this documentary.
Oh, he's huge though. He's huge because he's a scientist as well.
Right.
So he created the fasting mimicking diet. So for the people that don't want to fast, his approach to fasting is to restrict caloric intake for 5 days.
Oh, okay.
By eating just plants.
Oh.
So rather than have like 2,000 calories a day, you have 1,000 calories for 5 days. And you only have to do that like once or twice a year for the average person.
Yeah.
And it has the same benefits as water fasting.
Oh, yeah, I love
And
that.
those benefits are huge because what it does, and so what he's recommending on a long-term basis is to like eat plants 5 days a week and
Yep.
like include small amounts of protein, because you don't want to include. So if you start following David Sinclair, you'll see that the eating of too much protein can have some deleterious effects to longevity. So if somebody's asking me what's best, I wouldn't recommend that they eat lots of animal protein, because that might have some short-term benefits when you're still in the mating age, because you'll get all pumped. Women will think you're attractive,
Yeah.
and it's very good for mating.
Right.
But after age 40, what tends to happen is, okay, once you're done with the mating kind of thing, let's just say that we'll put an age 40 on it, not that there's a limit to it, but like from an evolutionary perspective, and as far as when we look at our entire species, there's very little use for us, right? So this is when human males and also all mammalian creatures tend to go into depression.
Right.
They're no longer the alpha male,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So you see that happening all the time, and then everybody's medicating for it.
Mm.
So after that, what are you concerned about? You might, for some people, they might want to be done with life, and and they will progressively, have like passive suicide and not take care of themselves. And you see a lot of that happening. But for those that want to continue living, and continue in the path of longevity, then probably eating meat, a lot of meat, is not good, because this is what Walter Longo did. He's like a scientist, and he's probably going to get a Nobel Prize for his work on mTOR. And actually, its effect of eating too much protein actually turns off the mTOR pathway and allows you to age. So if you're looking to not age, then follow the pathway of David Sinclair. He's like the world's leading scientist in longevity, and he, as well as Walter Longo, they mainly eat plants.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's leave you to sum it up and just 3 points. I know I've said it a few times, but if you had to make recommendations real quick to the point, because that's what people want, is, what are your recommendations to live the healthiest, longest life?
Yeah, well, the first would be to come up, what I would help somebody with, if somebody were to ask me, I would say, okay, look, we got 500,000 different edible plants and animals. Let's narrow it down to 100 that are amazing for you, that are superfoods for you. And then you pick from that. So that would include the work that I did with Margaret Cheney. And Margaret Cheney, she's a centenarian. She's 100 years old. She's sharp as a whip. And she found the foods and medicines and supplements that benefit one group make the other go weak, and that there's only two types of people on the planet. And you've met Margaret,
Yes,
and isn't she amazing?
Yeah, she's amazing.
All right, so if you don't know about Margaret's work, you'll probably always be a little bit lost as far as that goes. So we'll narrow down these 500,000 things to 250,000 that are beneficial for you, okay?
Right.
And then from there, we'll narrow down even more into the foods that are ideal for you. That's what I would do, right? As far as health goes. But if you're asking me overall for my recommendations for a long and healthy life, food is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Let's leave it at that then.
All right.
Yeah. Right on. All right. Thanks for being here.